And it's episode 116 here of Discontinued. I had to think of what the number of episode this is. This will be ending very soon with discontinued beverages, but I will be continuing with discontinued foods in February. Discontinued foods, fast foods, and snacks, etc. in February. But the discontinued drinks are going to be ending very soon. Talking about discontinued drinks because there's really no other drinks I have to cover. It's basically covered all drinks that I could think of and I found on the internet. So, anyway, so this episode 116 here, we're going to be talking about Moxie. Now, if you've never heard of Moxie, it was basically just it's kind of a very regional soda, basically. It's not really found anywhere anymore because it's not really being produced anymore. But here's the history of Moxie, and then I'll get into the history of why. I don't know why it's not being produced anymore, if it's not being shipped anymore to stores. But anyway, the history of Moxie was produced by Dr. Augustin Thompson. I'm not 100% sure if I'm pronouncing his name right, but Augustin Thompson of Lowell, Maine in 1886 or 1885, around there. It was kind of like a medicine at the time because most sodas back then were kind of medicines, if you would say. When sodas were first produced, they were mostly found at pharmacies. And they were kind of like a medicine to help your stomach or stuff like that. So sodas really weren't intended to be a drink to drink every day. It was kind of like a medicine. The ingredients in soda at the time was more of a medicine than anything. And so, for years, this was only found in Maine until Coca-Cola bought the rights in around the 50s, 1950s. And Coca-Cola was set to produce Moxie. Now, Moxie's only ever really been a Northeast type of soda. So, in case you never really heard of it, it was only really found in the Northeast. There might have been other states that might have had Moxie for a very brief time, but Moxie's only really found, or was only really found, in the Northeast. Now, for years, every time I would go to the store, any store you go to, besides maybe a couple of stores that didn't have it, stores like Hannaford's, Price Chopper, Walmart, Target, even Sam's Club had stacks and stacks of Moxie. Moxie was kind of our soda, if you would say. You know, it was kind of the Northeast soda. You know, that's what we had up here. You know, like the South has Cheerwine. Some area, where Coca-Cola is found in Georgia was where Coca-Cola is found. I don't know where Pepsi was found, but Pepsi was found where Pepsi was found. But we had our Moxie. That's what our soda was Moxie. And Moxie, I tried once. I didn't really care for it. To be honest, it was kind of like a very bitter root beer. And that's what it was basically like. It was just basically a bitter root beer. But a lot of people liked it. And I have an aunt named Reese. And she told me that it was really a thing in Maine. Like, Maine, everywhere you go in Maine, they had it. And they had different, like everywhere in Maine until it started to come over to like New York State and Vermont and stuff. And it really only started to come over probably during the 90s or early 2000s. It's really when like Moxie was being produced and like was during the 90s and early 2000s and since the 50s. But for whatever reason nowadays I can't find it anywhere. So I don't know if it's discontinued now. I'm not going to say it's discontinued entirely, but it's discontinued in my area. I cannot find it anywhere. And it would be a good review to do because a lot of people would be like, oh, cool, you're doing a review of a soda that I can't get at my local grocery store. But unfortunately, I think it's basically discontinued entirely. I'm not 100% sure if it's discontinued entirely, but I think it is because I can't find it anywhere anymore. And we were able to find it everywhere, basically. I was able to find it like at everywhere. Every grocery store I went to, you could find it. But nowadays, it's basically gone. Of course, Coca-Cola is not going to say it's gone entirely, but I think it's gone. Anyway, Moxie here for episode 116 of Discontinued.